Did you know that in 2020 alone, there were over 19 million cases of cancer diagnosed worldwide? And sadly, almost half of those people died from it. But what exactly is cancer? Why is it so hard to treat? And which types are the most and least deadly? Cancer isn't a single disease, but rather an umbrella term for hundreds of different diseases. At its core, cancer is really just the name we give to cells that have started to grow out of control and begun to invade surrounding tissues. Now, normally our bodies are great at killing off old or damaged cells, but every once in a while, one of these cells manages to avoid its fate and begins to replicate. Normally, cells have a limited number of times that they can replicate before becoming old and dying. But cancer cells, well, they kind of ignore that particular part of the memo. They begin to rapidly divide and multiply, creating more and more cancer cells. And depending on where this happens, cancer can be life-threatening. For example, if cancer starts to affect the brain, spinal cord, or nerves, it can quickly become fatal because the body can no longer properly send signals to and from the brain. Or if it affects the blood and immune system, the body can't fight off infections and could go into remission. Basically, any vital organ or tissue could be negatively affected by uncontrolled cell growth. Cancers are named for the type of cell from which they originate. There's carcinoma, which originates in the skin or tissues that line organs or cavities, like the lung or stomach. Then there's sarcoma, which comes from connective tissues like bone, cartilage, muscle, or fat. And then there's leukemia, which originates in blood-forming tissues like bone marrow. And while scientists are still working hard to find a universal cure for cancer, researchers are hopeful that with advances in technology, we will eventually have more advanced treatment options. For example, immunotherapies have shown to be effective against certain cancers, and scientists are working on gene therapies and other ways to manipulate the immune system to better fight off cancer cells. Scientists are also utilizing big data and artificial intelligence to help develop more effective and personalized cancer treatments. But for now, certain cancers are more deadly than others, so here's the most deadly type of cancer. In 2020, there were over 2 million cases of lung cancer diagnosed worldwide, and it claimed over 1.8 million lives. That's why lung cancer is the most deadly type of cancer in the world. It accounts for nearly 18% of all cancer-related deaths, and unfortunately, survival rates for lung cancer are generally lower compared to other cancers. One reason for this is that often by the time lung cancer is detected, it has already spread to other parts of the body, which makes it much more difficult to treat. So now we know the most deadly, but what about the most treatable? Fortunately, there's good news here. Of the hundreds of types of cancer, there's basal cell carcinoma, which is one of the most common forms of skin cancer. And thankfully, it's also one of the least deadly. If caught early, basal cell carcinoma is highly treatable and often curable with surgery, radiation, or other topical treatments. Most people diagnosed with this form of skin cancer do survive. And that's a relief considering that it's also one of the most common. I suppose that's some small comfort. But ultimately, understanding the different types of cancers and how they affect the body is helping researchers develop more targeted and effective treatments. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be able to eradicate the disease and treat it entirely. However, that likely will not be anytime soon.